I think a few of us were expecting Styanax Prime to be releasing around this time. That didn't happen. So it seems Styanax Prime is going to be on hiatus for at least 3 months now. But it's fun, because I got a new build on Styanax you can use until then. So 99% of the builds you see for Styanax are using Intrepid Stand, just because it's like the easiest build to make. You get overguard gen, you just build range and strength. This build though is different, because it's using an overlooked part of Styanax, which is his synergy with crit weapons, and specifically spear guns. So Styanax's passive gives you a bonus crit chance of 1% per 40 shield that he has, including overshields. And this bonus gets doubled for spear guns. And Styanax's latest augment, called Theros Lethality, increases his critical damage by 100% on enemies hit by his Theros Strike. And the damage bonus is also doubled for spear guns. Now with this build, I've hit over 7,500 overshield, giving me around 380% crit chance for spear guns. Add that together with the crit damage bonus you also get. It makes spear guns able to red crit in the range of over 1,000,000 damage easily. Now here's the basics of the build. Running Brief Respite, just for the extra overshield. Prime Sure-Footed, of course. Flow, Stretch, Intensify, standard stuff. You run Archon Stretch here because of the subsume, I'll get into that in a second. You're going to want Redirection for more shield, and Continuity just so your Rally Point and subsume last longer. And then we're running the Theros Lethality augment. We're also running Adaptation here because Adaptation's damage resistance applies to shields. The subsume we're using is Chroma's Elemental Ward because the Electricity Ward will buff your shield capacity by 81%. And because the Electricity Ward, well, does electricity damage, you get some synergy with Archon Stretch for a little bit extra energy regen. We're also subsuming over his 4 instead of his 1 because, honestly, without his augment on his 4, that ability doesn't really do too much for us. His 1 has some use as a grouping tool. The arcanes we're running are one of the new ones, Arcane Expertise, where 100% of your ability strength is also applied to your max shields, and then Bull Augmented, just for the extra strength. For Archon Shards, I would probably recommend something along the lines of 1 casting speed and 4 strength for him. The more strength you have, the more shield you get, which is the more crit chance you get. And also, Theros Strike's augment has a scaling with strength, so with 273%, we're getting a bonus of 273% crit damage. And I believe that 273% it's showing is for non-spear guns. For spear guns, that's over 500% crit damage. Now, this build is really good without spear guns because you just get a ton of crit damage and a bit of crit chance for free. But because these bonuses are doubled for spear guns, you're probably going to want to bring one. The best one we have in the game currently is Tenet Ferox. That's subject to change when we get Aphentis Prime with Styanax, but for now we're just using Ferox. So for this I'm running a blast build, we're using a Heat Valance bonus, and we're actually not running multi-shot, we're running Acuity. I found Acuity works really well with spear guns, especially with the blast build. So we're running Shred and Vile Acceleration for the fire rate, Primary Acuity, Galvanized Aptitude for the direct damage, Serration just for the damage. You can add a faction mod here. Primed Cryo Rounds with the Valence that's going to be giving us Blast, Vital Sense for even more crit damage, and Galvanized Scope for even more crit chance. Then, since we're running Acuity, we're also running Primary Deadhead. This, if you can see in the footage, hits for several million damage on red crits, and if you get a Blast proc, it's just killing everything around that enemy. The difference is actually night and day before you use your 2 on Styanax. You can see it just does nothing to enemies before you use your abilities. Activate all your abilities, suddenly several million damage red crits. It is crazy. Pair this with any good secondary and melee that scale with crit. My personal favorites for secondaries that scale with crit really well are the Vasto and the Lex and Garnon. And for melee, the Glaive Prime works really well here. As you can see in the gameplay, this build turns pretty underappreciated weapon class, being spear guns, into absolute nuclear bombs of weapons. You're decently tanky. I won't say it's the most tanky build. It's not like brainless like Chroma or something. You do have to be careful of toxin damage, and your shields can still get popped in Steel Path on high-level enemies. As long as you're killing enemies with Rally Point, though, your shield should be constantly topped off. And you do have to hit enemies with your 2 before you shoot them with the spear gun, because your 2's crit damage buff only applies to enemies that have been hit by your 2. But that's not really that much of a problem. With Rally Point and Archon Stretch, your energy is constantly topped off. You need to make sure you're hitting heads with the spear gun, and you can use your 1-2 group enemies to some effect. But yeah, if you're bored of just only running Intrepid Stand on Styanax and spamming your 4 with Nourish and doing nothing else, give this one a try. I don't see many people running Spearguns pretty much ever, and because of Styanax's passive, he's a uniquely good platform to use them on. And as you can see, they do have potential to hit very, very hard. But yeah, that's the build. Thank you for watching.